All right, welcome back to the channel, boys. So today, I thought I'd talk you through what it's like to have a consultation with a nutritionist, because I think there's a lot of people who would like to have a consultation with a nutritionist, or who would like to work with a nutritionist, but they're probably put off by the idea that they don't really know what they're gonna get from it. There's a lot of people who will probably naturally assume they're gonna get some really boring, strict meal plan that effectively really restricts their lifestyle, and so they put it off until they basically no longer can put it off. And I think genuinely working with a nutritionist could probably benefit, I don't know, 90% of the population at this point. I saw there was a study that came out the other day that found that there was over 1 billion people in the world now who are obese, and it is now more common for someone to be overweight than it is underweight. And I am old enough to remember when I was a little boy, a lot of the sort of global rhetoric, let's say, was about how we needed to, feed Africa, send food to Africa because they were starving children, and it was a real problem. And now it seems like it's gone the other way. And don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of starvation in the world, of course there is. But it seems like now, rather than being malnourished, at a global point, people are overfed. So that was a little bit sad, and I feel partly responsible because ultimately I'm in this field and I want to be able to help people. So hopefully by putting this video out here, it might give you a little bit more peace of mind and understanding what it would be like to work with a nutritionist like myself, but not just like myself. There's thousands of nutritionists, maybe even hundreds of thousands around the world who could help you if you're looking for help with nutrition, with your mindset. So what are the steps? What does it involve? Let me talk you through it step by step. So the first step, once you've kind of booked in effectively, the first step actually starts before the call, before the consultation. And what I do is I send all of my prospect and what do they call them? Prospective clients, I suppose they are, and a questionnaire. And it's very much a lifestyle questionnaire. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to complete, but it gives me a really good picture of who you are as a person, because all of my advice, whilst it's based on first centralized principles, it's personalized to you, your situation, and your goals, what you're actually trying to achieve. So that lifestyle questionnaire, I think it's 36 questions, which sounds like a lot, but a lot of them are scaled, like 1 to 10s and yes, no's and stuff like that. So it only takes 10 to 15 minutes to complete, super quick. We then book you in at a time that's obviously convenient for yourself. I do all of my consultations over Zoom. And the reason I do that, I like to be able to see the person, I like them to be able to see me, because I think, particularly when you're talking about something as intimate as our relationship with our food and our relationship with our bodies, it's very important to get a feel and a read for each other's body language. So very important for me that we have cameras on, conversation, face to face. I'll try to encourage the people to be in a comfortable environment where they're not going to be disturbed, where there's not lots of loud noises going on around them, where they can really focus and they can be ultimately relaxed, and where I suppose they could be vulnerable as well. Unlike where I am right now, where there is a guy, I don't really know what he's doing, trimming a tree. God knows, there's always something going on here. Anyway, I'm kind of somewhat used to it now. But anyway, so that's step one. Step one starts before we even jump on a call. And step two is then to actually jump on the call. Now, the first thing to say here is that I find that the vast majority of people who have kind of already made that decision to invest in a consultation call with a nutritionist have actually already started towards what they're trying to achieve. So the most common thing, and this might not be what you're trying to achieve, but the most common thing I find is weight loss, okay? And more often than not, people will come on the call and they'll be very quick to tell me that they're already doing everything. And essentially what they're asking for is for me to validate what their decisions. And for some people, they are doing the right things, and it is literally a case of, okay, talk me through this, and we just make subtle tweaks here and there. However, for the vast majority of people, they have gone in so deep, so fast, so extreme, that my job is actually to rein them in. And more often than not, I'm telling them to eat more. And I've actually done a whole separate video about this, which you can go back and watch. I think it was called Eat More and Lose Weight or something like that. It's one of my more popular videos, which I'm not surprised about because it's quite an attractive proposition, that. So the first thing is to kind of understand where the client is. What are you actually trying to achieve and stuff like that. So we'll jump on a call. And the first thing, I'm just pulling up my notes so I can talk you through exactly what I do, because I have a template, a structure that I follow, obviously. So the first thing we'll do is we'll actually go back through the answers which you filled into your questionnaire. And there's two reasons for that. First of all, it's to make sure that you've understood the questions correctly, you've answered them fully, and that we're on the same page in terms of the language that you've used. Because some of the questions, people can be either very vague and I need a bit more specific detail, or they might be saying something, but it could mean two things. So I just need to clarify exactly what they mean. It also gives you the opportunity to kind of flesh out the situation a little bit more, because, you might be on the move when you're doing the questionnaire, you might not have a lot of time, and, you might be just giving me a bit more surface level. When I'm talking to you face to face, you might be willing to give me a little bit more of the backstory. So yeah, that is kind of the first step on the call, is to go through this. And it's really important to understand that, and I've said this in other videos as well, that nutrition as a science, it's only about, it's very hard. You can't break these up objectively, but to me, it's about 25% science, it's about 25% maths, and it's about 50% psychology. It's up here, a lot of it, because when we're talking about our relationship with food, we're talking about one of the very few lifelong relationships that we as humans have had. We've been eating since day one that we have been alive, and there's very few days, maybe the odd day if you've had very severe food poisoning or surgery or whatever it might be, where you've had 0 calories. But basically every single day that you've been alive, you have had calories, you have had food. Maybe sometimes less, maybe sometimes more, but it's one of the very few lifelong relationships, deep-rooted relationships, generational relationships that you've had, because a lot of our education around food, around nutrition, comes from our parents, particularly I think from mothers, because it tends to be in a more traditional household. God, the woke brigade are going to come for me here, but the woman, the mother, does more of the cooking, understands more around, keeping the house, feeding the family and stuff like that, in a very traditional household, let's say. Now that might be changing now, God knows, I don't know. But yeah, so we have to really understand the backstory of this person, your relationship with food. Where are you kind of coming at your food from? It's also obviously very important for me to get really crystal clear on your goals and your objectives, what you're actually trying to achieve, so that I can make sure I'm giving you the absolute best advice to get there. So that's very much the first step. The next step is then to actually talk about the nutrition. So we will then go down, it depends very much. Most people want to achieve one of 3 things. They want to lose weight and lose body fat. They want to build muscle. They want to just feel better. They want to improve their energy levels. They want to improve their mental health, improve their performance, have better cognitive function, perform better at work, all of that sort of stuff. And it very much depends, and we have solutions for all of these scenarios. So once we've understood what the goal is, we'll go down that particular road. So it will be explaining and sort of educating on the principle of whatever they're trying to achieve. So if it's building muscle, it's going to be around progressive overload and calorie surpluses. If it's losing body fat, it's going to be around, understanding their maintenance calories and calorie deficits and that sort of stuff. And what I also do at this stage, once I've explained the principle, because for a lot of people that is like, they're like, what? Like, you guys watching this as connoisseurs of YouTube or podcasts, you're probably familiar with the science around calorie deficits and calorie surpluses. A lot of people, particularly the older generation, the probably I would say 40 plus, this is like brand new information to them, because they've been fed years and years of complete and utter BS. So just getting their head around that, can be quite a mammoth thing. So we'll spend however much time is needed kind of just zoning in on that, making sure that is absolutely crystal clear. I'll normally throw in a couple of analogies to make sure that is super important. Once I've done that and the client is incredibly clear on the principle that they need to achieve their goal, then we'll go into the specifics for them. So this is where I'll then introduce what their maintenance calories are, what their target calories and macronutrients should be. And when I'm introducing the macronutrients, I'll also explain the benefits of each of those macronutrients. Because again, my belief system is that if my clients understand why they're doing what they're doing and understand the benefits of it or the potential costs, they're far more likely to do it. If I just say, eat this many calories, eat this much protein, they might do it at first, but the chances are they don't really know me that well. They don't trust me. So maybe they'll give it a go for like a couple of days. They don't see or feel any difference because you won't after 2 days, and then they just go back to their old ways. Whereas if I'm actually educating someone on this, if I'm giving them a bit of a whistle-stop tour of how the body works and the value of each of the macronutrients, because they're all incredibly valuable to our bodies, then my experience, they're far more likely to understand, have the context, and actually implement and do this stuff for a long enough period of time to get the results. So once we've gone through that, I'll then actually talk to them about how to go about the process of implementing all of this. So this would be, downloading I just generally recommend MyFitnessPal to my clients in terms of tracking the calories, because it's the most widely used. They have the biggest food database globally, and they have a free version, which is pretty comprehensive. The paid version is better. I think it's £60 for the year or something, which, it's a lot of money for some people, but ultimately, if you think about like the benefit that you could be paying there for the fact that this could impact your entire life and literally add years to your life, £60 suddenly doesn't feel like that much. I guess that would be $80, something like that. So yeah, we'll then go around the process of this. I will then explain my system of how I like to look at tracking calories, which is not to be overly obsessive about it, and not to worry too much about the day to day, but to actually zoom out a little bit and look at your calories in the whole week. So on a Sunday night or a Monday morning, set yourself a calorie target based on your goal and based on what I've recommended in terms of a number. And then basically plan in high calorie and low calorie days. And that gives you a lot more freedom, but it also encourages you to plan ahead, it's so much better in life in general to be proactive. I'm sure you will agree with that. So once we've gone through that, the last thing I will touch on nutrition side of things is the supplements. No secrets here. I've done an entirely separate video on the 4 supplements that I recommend all my clients to take, which you can go and watch, scroll down. I think it's literally called the 4 supplements I recommend to all my clients. Again, one of my most popular, not surprising, but vitamin D, creatine, omega-3s, and a multivitamin. And there's reasons for that. You can go and watch that video if you want to understand that. So that's nutrition. Now, at that point, I'm like, breathe. Like, do you have any questions? Because the vast majority of people, this is like a lot's going on in their head. They came on and they thought they were going to get a bloody meal plan. I was going to tell them to eat chicken and rice. And I'm suddenly literally making their synapses in their brain explode, potentially. So at this point, it can be interesting to see how different people respond to it. But for the most part, I would say 95% of the time, because I've been doing this for so long, I have a certain way of explaining things and being able to empathize with someone's current situation that they will understand it, agree with it, and ask me a couple of questions that might be more specific to them, or more often than not, some of the questions that come up will be around myths that they've heard. Oh, but I've heard that if you have red meat, it's bad for you, or eggs are giving you cancer, or all this nonsense, so we'll then get into whatever the specificity of that myth is, and I'll debunk that for them using actual evidence-based science, which is based on meta-analysis studies, which is, very top-level science, for lack of a better word. So that's nutrition out of the way, but we don't stop there, because after that, I like to talk about the lifestyle, because it's very important to understand, or to have a good understanding of what a good nutrition, a good, healthy, balanced diet looks like. But lifestyle factors play an important part, both before your nutrition and after your nutrition. So we will cover, sleep hygiene and environment. We'll cover their hydration, water, and all this sort of stuff. I will touch briefly on what they're doing with their sort of exercise and fitness, and that could be anything from just their daily steps. If I'm talking to an elderly client who's not, they're not into like weightlifting and stuff, although there's a lot of benefits for elderly people to do weightlifting. Or it could be all the way up to sort of, what split are you doing, bro? Now, obviously at this stage, I won't give them a full training program. I will give them the option to join my full program if they want to. I'm not going to give them any kind of high sales pressure. You see what I mean? I'm not a natural salesman. I'm not going to give them any high pressure sales tactics and be like, well, you've got to join my program because if you don't, you're going to die. There's none of that. And then we'll also talk about caffeine as well, because caffeine is a drug, it's a supplement, but I think it's an important one that we should speak about separately, because so many people see it as such a big part of their life. And then that's kind of it. We wrap things up. Again, I just reinforce the principles and the main method, the main sort of the building blocks, I suppose, that we've been through. And then I kind of just cover their next steps for them in very simple bullet form format. So I will just sort of say, look, this is what I want you to do. And it's very much around the mindset side of things. This is where we get into a bit of the psychology around, like, you really need to believe in yourself, believe in this process, like make sure you're clear on your goal. Again, this is all very specific to you. If you were to have a consultation with me, I'll make sure that they understand their numbers, so their maintenance calories, their target calories, their macronutrients. I am also happy to send them free resources of how to hit certain macronutrients and calorie targets. If they are struggling with this stuff as well, I'm more than happy to do that. And I'll encourage them to download My Fitness Pal and to start tracking their calories, but also to remind them that tracking your calories is not a life sentence. You're not going to have to do it for very long. If you do it diligently, you can do it for like 2 months, and you'll probably never have to do it again in your life. And then we wrap up. And I at this point, I always make sure that I appreciate to them that it's a lot of information. And what I do is I send them, because I'm doing it over Zoom, and I pay the £15 a month or whatever it is for Zoom Premium. There's an AI tool in the background which you can turn on, which takes very detailed notes. I mean, sometimes they're pretty hilarious, but fair play, they're like 98% accurate. So I will always send the client the notes, but what I will also do is I will record the calls, and I will send the client the recording, because it's, most of the consultations, they're about 45 minutes to an hour long. So there's a lot of information. And for the most part, probably like 70% of the time, it's me talking. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, but you should be listening. It's like 100% you should be, but the listening I do in the questionnaire before I speak to the client. My job, I see it in that hour that I've got with them, is to educate them as much as possible, make sure they're crystal clear on it, and then to listen and answer any questions they might have. So yeah, that's basically it. That is what a nutrition consultation looks like. And I wanted to run through that because I think there's a lot of people who, like I said, A, could benefit from it, and B, might be on the fence of whether they want to work with a nutritionist or not. So if this has been useful, and if you would like to book a nutrition consultation with me, I will leave the link underneath this video. Full transparency, like I say, it's an hour long, it's £97. You can book it in at your convenience. It will be done over Zoom. It's fully private and confidential. I don't go and share any of your information or your details, anything. Everything is kept, even though I am under no obligation, I have integrity. So everything is kept private. And yeah, I'd love to have a conversation with you if you want some help reaching your goals, whether that's building muscle, losing fat, or just, improving your day-to-day performance and health. Cool. I'll leave it there, and I'll catch up with you guys tomorrow.